Welcome to Nerd News Now for October 31st, 2018. Have you ever fantasized about throwing bananas and turtle shells at other drivers? Well, Universal Studios is going to make that a reality. Also, in the comics this week, Deathstroke teams up with Yogi Bear? And last but not least, Batman the Animated Series is 25 years old. Now that you feel old, here's some more on Nerd News Now. Hello and welcome to Nerd News Now for October 31st, 2018. It's Halloween, y'all.
Yes, all right.
I didn't dress up.
Well, I dressed as a geek instead of a nerd.
Oh, okay.
As always, I'm Mark with Miss Jen and Ashford. So we're going to do things a little bit different. We have a show now in Kingdom of Geekdom called Enter Gamer. They're going to be talking about this game on this week's episode, Red Dead Redemption 2. But we're going to talk about it just in brief because it did more business than anything on a weekend.
Wow.
$725 million.
Good Lord.
Now, because of downloads and digital copies, that's not really a unit, but $725 million in just 3 days.
Mind-blowing.
I think people might still like video games. But was there ever like a point where we thought we weren't going to like video games anymore? Because I know that whenever we went to smartphones and people were playing like Bejeweled and Farmville on Facebook and stuff. So I thought maybe consoles were sort of going to slip away, but this brings them to the forefront with a vengeance.
You know what it seems like with, as far as Americans not going to war, no polio, we got more people alive, and we have more people alive that grew up with video games from the 1970s, 1980s, hashtag Mad Max. So with those people being older, they have a job, and they can source away money. I think people of all ages, you're 15, you're 20, you're 45, this doesn't surprise me. Yeah.
Do you think maybe a little bit that people got they get all excited just coming off of the success of the SpiderMan video game? They're like, well, that was awesome, and now I have to consume more. That idea of that was good, I'm going to try for that thing again.
I do think there's a part of that. I think that for this current generation of consoles, that something like Spider-Man, where it's PS4 exclusive, is like, I have to get a PS4.
Yeah.
And then they have like a red one with the spider logo on it, and it's like 2 terabytes or whatever, and then they have the Pro edition. I think if you invested in it for Spider-Man, you might as well parlay that into the next big thing.
Yeah.
I do think that is a thing, especially when people's Twitter and Facebook were blowing up with photos and the selfie mode in the game of Spider-Man a month ago. And that kind of just goes into this. Now, the thing about this game is that it's made by Rockstar. This actually isn't the most the video games ever grossed in a 3-day period. That goes to Grand Theft Auto 5, which got $1 billion, but that came out on a Tuesday. So because this came out on a Friday, Saturday, Sunday, it gets the honor of biggest weekend ever. But that's the same company, so whenever they release, a game, it is an event. They do the whole midnight release, but also this game is massive. It takes about 107 gigs on average to put onto your system. So even if you get the disc, you still have to upload that. People were going crazy on Twitter because the download times, depending on your system and your download speed, was anywhere from 2.5 to 4.5 hours.
She just got rid of all the family pictures.
Yeah. I mean, just hook up that old computer, because it's going to take a lot of space. It's just going to take a lot of space. I personally had to get an external PS4 drive. So I didn't want to invest in a whole new system, but I mean, this thing is 107 gigs. So I just got, a 2 terabyte extension, and I should be good through at least the next Spider-Man game. I hope.
So is this one of the first games where you could shoot at a random bird that's flying by? Or
no, that would be Duck Hunt.
No, but remember, like as far as Nintendo games, there'd be certain things where it was kind of off limits.
Yeah,
like Duck Hunt.
Yeah, so this is open world.
Right. Yes.
Right. Yeah.
This is one of the first ones that got popular.
Yes.
Yes.
So I remember back for one of the previous, I think it was PS2. It was Red Dead Revolver, and then 7 years later it was Red Dead Redemption. And then 7 years later it's Red Dead Redemption 2. So and people love, and we know, you know how stuff always cycles back. Like, so people love westerns.
Yeah.
Spaghetti westerns, western films usually pop up at least one a decade where it's like, oh, that's a throwback to the classic, even if it's a remake.
Even like Kill Bill, something that seemed like some ninja genre, is really
like,
a western.
Like a mixed, So the spaghetti western. But it's apparently there's like 80 hours of gameplay. So I mean that's like Final Fantasy used to be games like that, but now this is like action adventure,
way more open world,
free roaming.
Yeah.
There's all kinds of storylines and side missions. But so that would be interesting to see what can beat that. That's a lot of money. Once again, $725 million in 3 days. So staying with the video game theme, Castlevania Season 2 dropped on Netflix, and people love it, but we're not going to talk about that because the executive producer of that has hinted on Twitter that he is going to try to make a series for Legend of Zelda. Now, this is a character of such iconic status, Link.
Excuse me, princess. I'm showing my age. I'm sorry.
Right. But, and also, take this, it's dangerous out there. Just all the iconic images from the game. He's had a couple of incarnations, like Captain N, the Game Master, but they weren't ever just totally focused. They didn't capture that spirit like some of the games have, like Ocarina of Time. So the question about that is, do you think it would work better as an animated series or a live action, like high quality live action, 8-episode run or something like that?
I don't know. I know about 2 hours ago I outed myself as far as my age again, where I saw some image and I was like, oh, is that Young Justice? Is it like the same type of animation? And they said, no, it's Castlevania. I was like, oh, like with Simon Belmont? They're like, no, not Simon Belmont. It's the remaining family member, and I can't remember who it was. But again, I outed myself because I wasn't cool enough to know which Belmont it was.
Well, you got the family right.
Yeah.
It is a Belmont.
Yeah.
It's just it's not Simon Belmont.
Yeah.
So I think you should have got points for that. But I think with the animation style I'm seeing from Castlevania, I think animated would work, but I would also love to see live action because, of all the stuff we've seen from probably the last 2 or 3 Zelda games where it is like more of that open environment, running across green fields on horses, shooting the arrow. I think it's conducive to either. They just have to put money into it.
Well, I do want to say this. In the last show, I mentioned this cartoon called Trans RZ. That is the thing. Google it. And if you're a gamer, I would say, and I'm not gatekeeping, but if you're a gamer, I would say YouTube, Captain N, the Game Master, is one of the first cartoons for gamers. And Simon Belmont is in it, and Game Boy, and Mega Man, and all that. Kid Icarus. Do it. I'm sorry. Keep going.
No, I mean, that's a good point. It's just that's one of those things where if you watch that now, you might go, kind of lame.
Yeah, no, it's lame. But I think if you're a gamer and you want to know your heritage,
well, yeah,
then you should watch it. Yeah.
Because look, let's face it. There's a lot Double Dragon movie, awful. Super Mario Brothers movie, just awful.
Yeah, I wouldn't do that.
I think over time, like Tomb Raider with Angelina Jolie, that was a good film. The first 1 or 2 Resident Evils, but then it kind of got overkill.
Oh, what's the one with Mr. Savage where he was a video game master and he was in a tournament? Kevin Arnold.
The Wizard.
The Wizard. Yeah, well, if you're a gamer, and you feel if you had time and resources to know your heritage, I would go watch The Wizard.
Well, yeah, and that also features one of my favorite musicians, Jenny Lewis.
Thank you.
But that come on,
that's true.
But that was also just a marketing ploy for Mario.
Bam, see?
For Nintendo, because they had that big screen reveal and everyone was like, what's that?
Yeah.
I gotta go buy that for $60. Why did a Nintendo cartridge cost $60 and now a PS4 and Xbox game cost $60?
Thank you. Yeah,
Like, it's like it's the
Nothing
same.
changes.
but that's how technology works. As far as
Yeah.
like the first computer is the size of this room,
Mm-hmm.
and then we have a smartphone that's the size of my hand is more powerful.
Right.
Yeah.
But just like inflation did not affect that price point.
Yeah,
I guess.
and the reason why I bring up these archaic terms is because I keep being taken to task by 20-year-olds about something that happened 30 years ago. So it's relevant.
Yeah, you were there.
Yeah.
They were not.
But they skill me every time.
Yeah.
You know what I think would be really cool? So I'm always surprised when they come up with something completely new. So like when I saw the style that we're going to use for Into the Spider-Verse, I was like blown away. I was like, that's so new and fresh. I wonder if they're going to start using that where they can blend styles, make
Yeah.
something completely new that would be like, what happened?
I think some sort of cell shading like that would be awesome for that. Now they tried that, like Doogie Howser, Neil Patrick Harris, he voiced a Spider-Man series on MTV, maybe like 9 or 10 years ago, and it was it was like kind of like that. People were like, that's weird. So, but I think now people
They weren't ready
are
for it.
They're ready.
They may not have been ready for it, and it was also like the early stages of like that 3D rendering for television because they couldn't break the bank on it. But no, that would be a perfect style. I mean, because it's cartoonish, but you see like these really human features in it,
Yes.
and it's just it looks awesome. What else looks awesome and sounds awesome is that Universal Studios is going to be opening in Nintendo Land. That was announced like a few years back, but they actually started construction. So you have these people who are like way into amusement parks. So like on Twitter, there's been like leaked documents of like the layout of the or one that's going to be in Orlando, but they actually broke ground in California. So this is going to be kind of like Harry Potter's Wizarding World, but with Nintendo. So my first initial thought is, please let there be live action Mario Kart, as long as there's a way for people to do this safely. Because if you start throwing like real turtle shells and bananas while people like are on an enclosed racetrack, it's gonna be a nightmare. But are there any Nintendo characters that you guys would like to see represented at a place like Universal Studios?
Yeah, there was in the early version there was Gyromites. He's like a weird scientist type guy, and there was also this kung fu game. I can't remember what it was called. Kung Fu.
Yeah.
Yeah, each like round, if they could throw Kung Fu in there.
There wasn't really a lot of thought put into video game titles, because you have the game about ice climbers called Ice Climbers, and then Kung Fu is called Kung Fu.
And put Side Pocket in that amusement park. That would be awesome. Yeah.
I think that, I don't know how in the world they could possibly do it, but maybe it would have to be like in the kids area, so they could have like stations, but if they could just do Mario Party somehow, I would be so happy. I would just stay in that land, just Mario Party land all the time.
I think they'll figure out a way to do that, because it would kind of be like a game zone type thing. Maybe that will even be what they would call because we haven't had Astroworld for a while, but they always had that kind of fair type area where you got to pay $5 to lose every single game because it's all rigged. Yeah, but that would be a good place for that. Like little games.
And I'll tell you something that's cool too is that for the people where they love getting Nintendo cartridges, they like going back and finding out like what happened back then. In 1992, 91, 1990, I went out on Harwin.
All right. I love that place.
Yeah,
There's cool stuff to have.
Yeah, my parents, they used to buy jewelry from there and sell it at their jobs. Well, in Harwin, I ended up getting this Nintendo cartridge that had like 30 games in one, and it was things you never heard of. So get that out there. Someone retweet this and get that out there, and have this shut down or have this discovered, and tag Nerd News Now.
But I'm looking forward to that. Amusement parks are fun, and I love all the themed stuff. So I'm really looking forward to that. So now we're going to go to some movie news, but not about anything that came out this decade or the last decade. But there's two. So it's Halloween.
Hey, you're old. This will work.
Yeah. So it's Halloween, and there's two Halloween themed movies. One's debatable if it's Halloween or not. But Beetlejuice turned 30 this year. A Nightmare Before Christmas turned 25. So now that we all feel super old, We're going to talk about that for a second because earlier this month, Beetlejuice was re-released. And
Did they change anything?
they didn't change anything. No, I think there might have been like an extra scene that Tim Burton tacked on to that. Well, it's actually 2 Tim Burton movies. So the other one is Nightmare Before Christmas. So first of all, what do you think of when a movie that you could, get digitally on Blu-ray, on DVD, is re-released in the theaters? Like, you still like that experience? Do you think, especially like taking kids or younger family members to, or maybe people in their 20s that weren't around, be able to experience that? Do you like that idea?
I'll say this, guys. If you go back and watch Beetlejuice, it's not a family movie, that's first of all.
Yeah.
Second of all, you'll see Michael Keaton. This dude is an actor.
Yes.
He played Beetlejuice. He was Batman.
Yeah.
He was the main villain in Spider-Man Homecoming. So for younger kids that are like, who's that dude that was the villain in Spider-Man Homecoming? Let me tell you something about Beetlejuice. If you go back and watch that movie, in retrospect for the older people, shot for shot, it is well directed. Very odd, weird type of comedy, but it's melancholy and it's kind of morbid.
Yep.
Not kind of, it is morbid.
Yeah.
But I'm going to tell you again, if you go back and watch that movie, shot for shot, it is well directed. And then for the younger people that are watching Stranger Things, you'll be able to see the mom in Stranger Things. She's playing Lydia. And then if you go back and you watch the Blu-ray and you like that movie, Beetlejuice, the cartoon version, was actually pretty good.
Don't forget Alec Baldwin and Gina Davis.
And okay, so Alec Baldwin, he, we all know he's wild and crazy. He was actually dramatic in that one. And then I just think Gina Davis is beautiful and awesome. So, yeah.
Agreed. What I think is cool is I do like it when they get re-released. For certain movies, I think it's important for the next generation to see them that way because I think that not so much recently because now there's gigantic screen TVs so they can kind of get the movie theater view. My kids for the longest time laughed about the original Star Wars films that I grew up with because they were like, they only saw them on small screens and they didn't understand what it was like to wait in line for hours and hours and hours with hundreds of people and sit down in a movie theater with surround sound, THX, and really experience it. So I think it's great for them to redo it because then they get to really get the feel of what the film was intended to be viewed as, which is a group experience, not a 3 people on a couch experience. It makes a difference, I think.
And I just want to say this. In Beetlejuice, there's all type of threads going on in it, but there's this one thread where it's in the afterlife and it's ran like a bureaucracy as far as like a business and you're waiting in line. And there's this high school football team that they're dead. And the whole time they're like, hey, coach. And at the very end they go, hey, coach, I don't think we survived that crash. This is a comedy. It's a comedy. That is morbid. All right. Yeah.
Yeah, I like it. I saw North by Northwest on the big screen when I lived out in LA like 10 years ago. And so, that was obviously a movie that had been out for decades. When I first saw it, I just think there's something about that experience. So the other movie, again, the 25th anniversary of Nightmare Before Christmas. Is this a Christmas movie or a Halloween movie?
I'm ashamed to say I've never seen it.
Oh.
And I'm talking about
you have your chance.
Tim
Hey,
Burton.
guess what? It's in theaters now.
Yeah.
And
I think it's one of those iconic movies. I think it's both. I think you can watch it during both seasons and be equally as happy. Yeah, it's just like all of his movies are a little bit wacky and you're going to see characters you've never seen before, or at least presented in ways you've never seen before. I don't know. He just has such a good feel for making a whole world that you can totally buy into. And it stood the test of time. Like, still, I have people today in the shop looking for figures from that movie.
Tim Burton knows how to make creatures.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And even when he did Batman, if you watch Nightmare Before Christmas, even though I've never seen it, I've seen the style. And you watch 9, and you watch those 2 Batman movies, and you watch Beetlejuice, it looks like the same universe. Yeah. That's what he does.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's like perfectly both. I was fortunate enough to be able to go to Anaheim a couple years back, Disneyland,
Yeah.
and they redid the Haunted Mansion in the theme of Nightmare Before Christmas.
Really?
So it was awesome. It was awesome, but like, and then like you said, as far as the creatures, you have Jack and Sally, and they're just an iconic couple.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, and you see merchandise everywhere. Obviously, comic book shops, because I know Nika has been making figures for years and years, and on the pop Funko with the pop vinyl. But just Hot Topic has a section. You can find the stuff at Target, Walmart. It's everywhere.
Yep.
I mean, it's just absolutely everywhere. And I think on the big screen, you'll see the musical numbers, and you'll just see like. But the other things the one thing we haven't mentioned yet is just like the excitement of being around a crowd. I don't need to wait overnight in tents anymore. I don't want to do that. but I think but I think like just that excitement, because other people get you excited about stuff like that. Well, we're going to take a break real quick here on Nerd News Now, but we'll be back with a TV show that hits its 25th year anniversary, so we'll feel old about that after the break.
Football season is here, and Woodlands Online Sports is back better than ever. Watch all the action on KVQT 21 Houston and woodlandsonline.com.
For home repairs, call John Moore, where quality is guaranteed. If the problem returns, so will we. No extra charge.
Call John, get more. 730-2525.
Welcome back to Nerd News Now. So moving to TV, but staying with the anniversary theme, Batman the Animated Series has been around for 25 years, y'all.
Wow.
Isn't that crazy?
Wow.
Yeah.
So this comes up because earlier this week, an awesome remastered Blu-ray set was released. It retails for about $100. There's tons of extras.
That's some cheddar cheese.
It is, but these are remastered, and you get 3 mini pop vinyls with it. And you get trading cards, you get stuff, you get a cool box set. But I can already tell what your answer is going to be. But do you still like the digital media form, or would you rather just like download it, carry it around in your pocket?
I don't know, I'm a physical object person.
Okay.
I like real books. I still go and buy actual DVDs. I have actual music CDs. I'm probably the only person that buys music CDs anymore. But hey man, when the whole world falls apart, I got it still.
You're gonna have those
I got my
CDs,
boombox and my tapes.
Yeah. I'm both. You know, I like digital downloads and I like the physical copies. I like LPs. I like using the term LPs. I like albums. I like using the term albums. And I gotta say this, as far as the Batman animated series, cool stuff. You know, Bruce Timm, you know, he's a director on there. You got Paul Dini, he worked on there. And there's a lot of folks as far as like, you know, from Batman the Animated Series, then it goes into Superman, then it goes into Justice League Unlimited. It's one stream of consciousness. If you look at the credits, it's the same people, you know, it's Bruce Timm and some other folks, same people working on that, some of the cartoon movies that we get. Not recently, but before that is Bruce Timm and some of the same folks. That's why it seems like one stream of consciousness. If you watch Justice League Unlimited, there'll be certain references that they're making back to like 1995 Batman the Animated Series. So it's at the end of the day, it's like very well written. I remember there was this one episode where it's this guy, he cuts off someone on the road, ends up being the Joker. The Joker's like, give me your driver's license. The Joker takes it. Then 10 years later, he comes in and he asks him for a favor. But I know that someone like Paul Dini, you know, you got Neil Gaiman, and we mentioned Tim Burton. The three of them, they're really good at taking other people's properties, working within it, and making their own bubble universe. Bruce Timm, someone that worked on Batman the Animated Series and Justice League, he's credited with He-Man, Ghostbusters, the real Ghostbusters. And you saw, like, I watched a Paul Dini, you know, he's written a lot of Batman, he's written a lot of Zatanna comics, but he wrote this one episode on He-Man where, again, I'm in the He-Man universe, but I created my own bubble universe to work within it. Neil Gaiman, he does that all the time, where I'll take your property, do my own universe, and Tim Burton, same thing, where, yeah, I'll do Batman 1 and 2 in the early 90s, but I'm going to do these things and I'm going to make it Tim Burton.
Yep.
So, we see these things, but going back to the Batman the Animated Series, we got Kevin Conroy, where when I'm reading the comics by myself, yeah, maybe I like Val Kilmer's Batman, maybe I like Christopher Nolan's Batman, but when I'm sitting there reading Detective Comics, which I did Saturday, I'm reading Kevin Conroy's voice. Even during 9/11, he said he was at like a soup kitchen serving people. Firefighters going, whoa, whoa, whoa. You're Batman. Just by hearing his voice. They don't know his face. They just hear the voice. They go, You're Batman. That's how touching this dude is.
Oh, that's awesome.
So that's how big Batman the Animated Series is. I remember what's so important about it to me, this was before I knew like what DC and what it was about and all this stuff. And I was watching this one episode where, where they were going against whomever and they were on a chessboard and they were moving around and things were shaking. And Robin told him, he's like, hey, remember, people call you the Dark Knight. You have to move on the chessboard like a knight. And that's why I was like, oh, okay. And then kind of years later, I realized like, oh, the whole thing about Batman, he's a detective. If you write Batman, you got to bring writing skills to it. And like a lot of times with DC, like the writers are featured more than the artists. And like that's how I follow comics. Like, oh, I like Batman, but if they don't have good writing on there, then I drop Batman. Like I usually follow a writer and then I follow the comic. And that all leads back to the Batman the Animated Series.
Miss Jean, did you have a favorite episode? Or just like a reason why you think the show just keeps building in popularity, it seems like?
I don't know. Really, honestly, my exposure to the show is more through the comic books because they did lots of series through it. And, I know that's where Harley Quinn came from. Like, she didn't exist in the universe before that.
Exactly.
And that's one of the hottest comics.
Yeah.
That issue where she first appears.
Or what about the fact that even the voice of the Joker, to me, is pretty definitive?
Well, Mark Hamill.
Mark Hamill is pretty
and then you have Adrienne Barbeau as Catwoman.
Yeah.
And that's just to name 3 of the cast members. I mean, and, it's just an iconic series, and, we all go to conventions, and the voice actors do these conventions, and their lines are nonstop. And people go up to Kevin Conroy and say, you're my Batman. And like you said, they may not even know what his face looked like before they saw that he was going to be at the show, and they're like, oh, that's him? Okay. But they know his voice, and there's something about that show. To me, a couple of episodes were Harley and Ivy, because they established the friendship between Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy. And that was awesome. Harley's Day Out, because it established Harley Quinn as a character on her own, away from Joker, and then Almost Got Him, where all the villains are playing a poker game talking about all the times they almost killed Batman. So,
it's great.
It was an awesome show. Another awesome show that just came out, and also Halloween theme, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. I don't want to call it Sabrina the Teenage Witch because it's not.
No.
And people online are kind of like, oh, why isn't it like the other series? There's nothing like it. This is based on the comic of the same name.
Yep.
That was on the Afterlife with Archie imprint of comics. Very dark. It's not for children.
Super adult.
But it is really good, y'all. I've seen the first 3 episodes. You're a big Doctor Who fan. Michelle Gomez is excellent in this series.
I love her. I haven't seen this series, but I love Michelle Gomez. I got to jump on this.
One of the big differences is, in the Melissa Joan Hart sitcom, Salem was animatronic cat, right? A puppet. He's a real cat this time, and the actress that plays Sabrina has a bad cat allergy, and that is actually limiting their ability to interact. Salem does not talk, but I assure you it's great. Like, because he's a familiar, and so it's very, like, kind of Harry Potter, what they're doing. But it is a very adult series, but I do highly recommend it if you need something to watch while you're still in the Halloween mood. Yes. So I think that is awesome. Well, we're going to wrap up here pretty soon, but let's hit comics that are coming out this week. Now, for a while, DC has paired up with Hanna-Barbera and Warner Brothers through, initially, I know they had the Warner Brothers variants, which were awesome, because they have, like, one that sticks out in my mind is the Black Canary run from a couple years back, where she's up there on the police lineup with like Tweety and Foghorn Leghorn and the other birds. But now it's like crossover series. Like Gail Simone just wrote one of the stories for the Sylvester and Tweety and Catwoman mashup. Yep. So this week we have what I find is hilarious and interesting: Deathstroke versus Yogi Bear. What do you think about that one?
It's not really a versus. It's a story where I think the animals in the forest all go crazy or have some kind of like virus, and Boo Boo has disappeared. So Yogi hires Deathstroke to protect him while they go and try to figure out what's going on. And all of the stories that they do when they do this crossover are like actually serious. They're not poking fun. They're not being silly. They try to be as realistic as possible. So yeah, that it actually works really well.
I assumed it was versus because it's Deathstroke, and he's just like versus everybody. Another
he's
one,
getting paid.
and just another example of that is Nightwing and Magilla Gorilla.
It's a murder mystery.
I find these very interesting. I think that once they're digital, I'm going to check them out. But I'll be honest, like some of the covers just make me grab them just without. And they have the top DC writers doing this.
Okay, the Catwoman and Sylvester, the artwork on that looks amazing.
Yeah, like
I've been looking at that for months. Yeah,
and that's awesome. So on the Marvel side, just to give equal airtime, and because it's Halloween, there's an Avengers Halloween special, and I'm really excited about that because the comedian / actor Jay Baruchel. You might know his voice from How to Train Your Dragon, but he's on the Judd Apatow crowd, and he had Man Seeking Woman on FX, which is hilarious. So he's cutting his teeth for Marvel Comics as a writer. Now this is one of those type of books where it's a collection of a few short stories. Is that right? Yeah,
it's anthology. So there's a bunch of different stories, are all the same kind of theme. They're all definitely aimed at Halloween. But the one story that I love the most from the book is actually, it's got Captain America's its central theme, but it's really crazy. So group decides that they want to get together, and they're talking about we're going to get a weapon out of the ice, and out of the ice comes Captain America, but there's something wrong with him. And I will only say this so it doesn't spoil things for people, but if you are a fan of John Carpenter's The Thing, you will recognize the story that unfolds.
Okay. I mean, to me, that's all it takes. I like when I was looking through some older Action Comics this weekend. I like when there's like 5 stories in the book. Because it's like, sometimes you want more, but sometimes 8 pages is enough. Especially back then, they used to do the part 1 through 12 or whatever. Yeah. So just to wrap up, is there any other books that you recommend for this week?
So from what I understand, for people that like also horror, The Ice Cream Man, which is a series that's been running for a while from Image, has got a huge event that happens in the book, which I can't talk at all about because it'll mess everything up for everybody. So if you're looking for a book that you might think about picking up because you're feeling like you want to read something creepy, Ice Cream Man is also an anthology book where it's a bunch of really creepy stories. Ice Cream Man being centered to them all. Yeah.
And I just want to mention, remember, Shazam, Jeff Johns, and artwork by Dale Eaglesham. That's going to be some good stuff.
Coming up.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that's all the time we have for today on Nerd News Now, brought to you by the Kingdom of Geekdom on Woodlands Online. Check us out on Twitter. It's the Kingdom of G. And just let us know what's going on in your world. And we'll be here next time for all your news from the world of geeks and nerds on Nerd News Now.